I advise all of my clients to keep separate bank accounts for all of their personal expenses and all their business expenses. I don't care if you got a sex problem, just make sure it's on your personal credit card, not your business credit card. Hunter Biden, son of President Joe Biden, has been indicted on 9 new criminal tax charges by a federal grand juror in California. Listen, Hunter was already facing separate criminal charges in the state of Delaware for illegally possessing a gun. This means that the president's son could be facing 2 separate criminal trials next year in 2 different states. Obviously, this is a huge story in the tax world. I'm going to explain all the details of the criminal charges that Hunter Biden is facing, as well as other criminal details about his entire tax situation. Without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so here's a quick rundown of the 9 criminal tax charges that Hunter Biden is facing. 5 counts of failing to pay taxes, 2 counts of filing a false return, 1 count of tax evasion, and 1 count of failing to file taxes. Of these 9 criminal charges, 3 of them are felonies and 6 of them are misdemeanors. The 3 that are the felonies are the tax evasion counts and the 2 counts of filing a false return. Now, the charges that Hunter Biden is facing are quite serious, and this is one of the highest profile tax cases of the last decade. Hunter could be facing up to 17 years in prison for these tax charges, in addition to potentially more jail time due to the gun charges in Delaware. Now, according to the indictment, the president's son engaged in a 4-year scheme in which he willfully chose not to pay up to $1.4 million in taxes that were personally assessed to him all the way from tax year 2016 through 2019. He allegedly also evaded tax assessments for the tax years 2018 when he filed a false return. The indictment declared that Hunter Biden spent a whopping $872,172 on various women and adult entertainment. And regarding these expenses and other lavish expenses made by Hunter Biden, the indictment read, the defendant spent this money on drugs, escorts, girlfriends, luxury hotels, and rental properties, exotic cars, clothing, and other items of personal nature. In short, everything but his taxes. Part of the reason why Hunter Biden was indicted for making many of these purchases is that he tried to identify a lot of these payments as personal expenses instead of business expenses. In other words, he tried to write off a lot of his personal expenses as business expenses, which is illegal. Now, for example, he allegedly failed to identify a $1,500 payment made to a stripper at a strip club on August 14, 2018 through the Venmo payment app as a personal expense. According to the details of the transaction on Venmo, Hunter Biden described the payment as being made for artwork. Additionally, Hunter allegedly failed to identify an $11,500 transaction payment to an s-corp that was a personal transaction. The payment was made to the s-corp for spending 2 nights with Hunter Biden in his room. Furthermore, Hunter is alleged to have claimed that money he paid to sexual and romantic partners as business wages. His apparent goal for doing this was to reduce his tax burden by deducting the wages as business expenses, like having an employee. He allegedly also claimed that he spent $18,000 on a golf club membership, but $10,000 was actually spent at a sex club membership. Guys, this is not fake. Additionally, he allegedly spent thousands of dollars on his business line of credit at strip clubs, and he falsely represented to his accountants that it was for business expenses. The indictment also claimed that he used his business line of credit to pay for personal items like high-end clothing, restaurant meals, and luxury hotels. The indictment has a much more elaborate breakdown of all of Hunter Biden's expenses and alleged tax crimes. These are just a few of them that I'm sharing with you here today. Now, in case you're confused about why Hunter Biden is being charged with a tax crime for spending money on strippers, escorts, sex clubs, and all these other crazy expenses, the reason is because it is against the law to claim personal expenses as business expenses on your tax return. It is also illegal to fail to pay the IRS the taxes you owe, to lie on your tax returns, and to fail to file your tax returns. Hunter Biden has been accused of all these things. Now, the charges against him, they're very severe and they come with severe punishments. However, we don't know if he will be found guilty of these charges and sent to prison as a result. There's still a chance that he could be found innocent, but Hunter being charged with all of these crimes is a perfect example of the dangers of commingling business and personal funds. I advise all of my clients to keep separate bank accounts for all of their personal expenses and all their business expenses. I don't care if you got a sex problem, just make sure it's on your personal credit card, not your business credit card. I personally even go as far as to recommend that my clients do not ever use payment apps like Venmo or Zelle for business payments. The reason why is because many people are extremely used to making personal payments through these apps. Then, if they start to make business payments through them, they can accidentally commingle personal and business funds. This is something that you do not want to do, so you need to watch your expenses closely and avoid these type of payment apps at all costs. As a general rule of thumb, for all of my business owners out there, it is critical to keep your business funds as separate from your personal funds as possible to prevent commingling. If you do accidentally commingle your personal and business funds, you can not only face some legal trouble, but you could also potentially lose liability protection that you wanted for your LLC or for your corporation. This is because when you commingle personal and business funds, they can potentially result in a piercing of the corporate veil, which just means to you that you could personally be held liable for the debts and other liabilities of your business. Now, in other words, just avoid commingling personal and business expenses at all costs. Keep separate bank accounts for personal and business purpose and avoid using Venmo, Zelle for business as much as humanly possible. So you might be asking, who brought the charges? The 9 criminal tax charges against Hunter Biden were brought by special counsel David Weiss. David Weiss is a Trump-appointed United States attorney from the state of Delaware who has been supervising the federal probe into Hunter Biden for a number of years. Although Hunter Biden has been formally indicted by a grand jury on these 9 criminal tax charges, there was initially a plea deal that was on the table. In fact, earlier in 2023, there was a proposed plea deal in which Hunter Biden would have pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges. In exchange, he would have most likely not have been required to serve prison time for either the tax charges or the gun charges that he was already facing. Now, there were a few apparent reasons why the plea deal collapsed earlier this year. For example, the prosecution and the defense apparently were having disagreements about whether or not the plea deal would prevent Hunter Biden from facing additional criminal charges in the near future. There was a number of other sticking points in addition to this one that seemed to prevent a plea deal from actually being agreed upon. Now, the judge who was presiding over the case gave the prosecution and Hunter Biden's defense team an additional 30 days to try to reach a plea deal. However, the 2 parties were never able to come up with an agreement and the plea deal got thrown out. Now, Hunter Biden is facing a much more serious charges than the 2 misdemeanors that he was about to face that he was going to accept a plea deal for earlier on in 2023. So, what's going on? Is Joe Biden being involved? What's happening? At this point, you might be wondering, is Hunter Biden's father, President Joe Biden, involved in all of this? Well, the indictment did not name President Joe Biden, and the president is not including any of the charges against his son. However, the former president, Donald Trump, is currently facing 4 criminal charges of his own. So it appears that in 2024, during the election year, one of the leading presidential candidates, Donald Trump, and the son of the current sitting president, Joe Biden, will both be embroiled in various serious criminal charges. This is absolutely crazy. So I want to take a second here to discuss deducting business expenses related to entertainment, because you're probably wondering, did Hunter Biden really do anything wrong by claiming those strippers and all those escorts as business expenses? Did he? Well, there is some very important legislation to consider here. In 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act became law during the Trump administration. It was made into law that business entertainment is no longer tax deductible. This clarified that business meals with clients would also be 50% deductible, but entertainment expenses were now reduced to 0%. So let's say that hypothetically, Hunter Biden had actually been conducting business activities in these strip clubs. If he had been holding a meeting with some clients in the club and then later tried to deduct the entertainment expenses he paid to the strippers from a business credit card, even if he had the best of intentions in the situation, he would still likely get into legal trouble here because entertainment expenses are no longer tax deductible anymore. That went away after the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So, if any of you are watching this video and getting crazy ideas right now and thinking about holding business meetings in strip clubs and trying to deduct the money that you spend on strippers in the club as entertainment expenses, then you should definitely not do this. Try to make sure you put that on your personal card. The same goes for trying to deduct baseball tickets, concert tickets, sporting events. In fact, Don't try to deduct any of these entertainment expenses for your business, period. The IRS does not allow you to deduct entertainment expenses anymore, plain and simple. Now, there is another important point to consider in this whole Hunter Biden situation. Hunter Biden's also being accused of hiring strippers and exotic dancers for personal reasons and trying to write them off as a business expense. Guys, trying to deduct any kind of personal expense as a business expense to get a deduction is a huge mistake. Do not do this either. Here's a quick recap of the most important parts I discussed with you that I just want to make sure you walk away with. President Biden's son Hunter has a serious issue. We know that now. He has been charged with 9 different counts of criminal tax offense. These charges include tax evasion, failure to file, failure to pay taxes, and filing a false return. It's unclear whether or not Hunter Biden will be found guilty on these charges. We know what happens sometimes in Congress. He could be facing up to 17 years in prison. He could not. The IRS no longer allows entertainment expenses to be deducted. So do not try what Hunter Biden tried to do. If you have any questions about any of the tax issues that we covered today, or if you want to learn how you can avoid making mistakes and getting into legal trouble with your taxes, feel free to get in touch with my team. You can click on the link below in the description to schedule a complimentary consultation with my tax strategy team. You will also find a link to my ebook called The Short-Term Rental Rule. In this ebook, I explain the short-term real estate strategy that will help you offset a large portion of your W-2 or your 1099 income, and it's all in the description below. And finally, you can find a link to the Tax Alchemy course. This is a predominantly real estate tax course where I teach you extremely powerful tax strategies that are used by the wealthiest of Americans on a regular basis to save big money in taxes. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you liked it, and let me know in the comments what you think about this one. I'll see you on the next one.